What? Welcome to Let's Be Frank.
Morning, Ali.
Morning. Today we are talking about challenge the status quo. And anyone who works at this company will have heard that phrase a few times. Anyone who knows you, I'm sure, would have heard that phrase a few times.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with a quote that I read yesterday from Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, who said that ironically, in a changing world, playing it safe is one of the riskiest things that you can do. I think the other thing that we constantly hear, and it's almost like we're hearing more and more of it, is that change is the only constant.
Yeah.
And that the world is changing at a faster pace almost every month, never mind every year.
Every day even.
Yes, so it's extremely important for a number of reasons to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
To look for better ways of doing things, and also to challenge the status quo in terms of ourselves.
Yeah. I was actually also watching a video the other day of he was the CEO of Ariba, or one of the founders of Ariba, and then he became the CEO of DocuSign. And when he became the CEO of DocuSign, it was a startup, and he had a meeting with all of the staff. I think there were 50 of them at the time. And one of the questions he got was, is there going to be more change? And he said, of course there's going to be more change. That's the only thing we can count on, is that there's going to be more change. Yes. And she was kind of asking to say like, oh, I don't want any more change. I just want to be settled,
Yes, so we deal with that a lot. People who tell you that they don't like change.
Yeah. You don't really have a choice.
You don't really have a choice, but I also don't believe that even people who say that really don't want change.
Yeah.
I think people can check that for themselves, in terms of just all the convenience that you have and the devices that you use, the luxuries that you enjoy every day. Well, how many of those are you willing to give up and go back to where you were, I don't know, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10
Even
years
a year ago. I mean, it's very recent.
Which of those are you willing to give up?
Yeah.
So I think the main issue is our fear of change, our fear of upsetting our habits, or what we believe is the best way of doing things.
Yeah, I think there's probably also a fear of having to change your own behavior. People get so comfortable being the way that they are and using that as an excuse for everything. This is just how I am. So having to challenge the status quo and having to deal with change means you actually sometimes have to change yourself.
Most often you have to change yourself. So I think if we just look at the future, it is going to become increasingly important to be open to change.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to be left behind. And it's not just from a career perspective or from a technology perspective, but I think from a social perspective as well.
Yeah.
If people are not mentally resilient, they are going to be left behind.
Yeah.
So we can't really predict what the world will look like in 10 years or 50
anyone would have
years.
predicted this world 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I was listening to something the other day, and the speaker was saying that, well, if anyone tells you that 2050 will look like science fiction, it's probably not 100% correct. But if anyone tells you that 2050 is not going to look like science fiction, probably also not telling the truth.
Yeah, we have no idea.
We have no idea.
Yeah.
But we've got the recent past to kind of guide us in terms of that.
Yeah.
And if that is any indication, and we look at the rapid progress that are made in certain fields, then there's definitely massive change coming for not just us as a business or us as a country, but for humankind.
Yeah. It's kind of exciting, but also quite scary, not knowing what's coming.
What makes it scary?
The unknown. Fear of the unknown, not knowing how it's going to affect you personally, and I don't know. I want to bring it back to kind of more of a business context, or our business context, because challenge the status quo is number one in our blueprints formula.
What we should do more of.
Yeah, what we should be doing more of as a company. So how do we want that to kind of manifest in our company, and in what instances do we want to see this happening? Every instance, I suppose.
So you answered the question.
All the time.
All the time. And it really is important that all of us must, on a very regular basis, and I want to say daily, is check whether what you're doing is still the most efficient way of doing it. Yes, there will be things that will be fine if we do it the same way for the rest of the year, or maybe for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But we have to constantly check and see. And often it's not wholesale change that's required, but those small little incremental changes where we can improve on something. You know, the old cliche about the most dangerous words is that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah. Makes me think of Rich Mulholland's Legicide.
Yes.
What is
Legicide's a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have to be very aware of it. So it doesn't matter how small or how big it is, which area it is that we're focusing. So we all have a role, and I think that's the place to start. Look at the things that you find yourself doing repeatedly, and look at the ways that you are doing it. So maybe it's not something that affects anybody else, but just in terms of your own productivity.
Yeah.
What is your status quo? How are you doing things, and how can you improve on that? And then obviously we want these things to cascade, because we all want to improve. I don't believe that there's any one person here who says that I do not want to improve. I do not want to be more efficient.
Yeah.
I don't want to make my job easier if I can. I don't want to produce more. So I think inherently
it's a natural...
Yeah, everybody wants that. And by questioning some of the simple things that we do on a daily basis. So we have certain meeting rhythms or meeting disciplines that we have in place. And those are there for a reason. We have to very regularly question whether we get the maximum value out of that.
Yeah.
That's a simple example.
Well, we did recently just change the way that we do one of our team's morning meetings, and
we're seeing benefits from that.
Yeah.
And we'll most probably have to review that again in 2-3 months' time.
Yeah.
And find out whether we want to tweak something, whether we want to add or remove something, or whether we want to change it completely.
Yeah.
So those are small little examples of how we should question the status quo.
Yeah.
And it's about everybody questioning the status quo, not waiting for somebody from either higher up or the person in the seat next to you questioning the status quo.
So what happens, so I'm just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Sure.
But it just popped into my mind that sometimes challenging the status quo or the norm can make you appear to be a rebel. So how do we treat that in our organization? I mean, is someone rebellious if they challenge something that did come from a leader, or...
Not at all.
Well, is there anything wrong with being a rebel, I suppose, is also the...
No, I don't think... I feel like this may be a trick question, but no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a rebel.
Yeah.
I think
if it's for the good of the team, I suppose.
Correct. I was going to say the same principle that we apply in our meetings, where we have our pot reminder, unfiltered, passionate debate in pursuit of the truth.
Yeah.
So I expect to be challenged. If I say that we're doing something in a certain way, somebody must make a decision. But from there, if I made a decision and I said that this is what we're going to do going forward, I expect to be challenged. I expect to be corrected.
Or given an alternative solution or way forward. Or
in pursuit of the truth.
Yeah.
So as long as we keep that principle in mind, then I have absolutely no problem with anybody challenging anything.
Yeah, as long as you have some fact to back it up or the reasons behind it, or
just come with some logical proof that this will improve things.
Yeah.
And improve things for the betterment of the team.
Yeah.
For the organization. You referred back to the formula. I try to make a point of checking a lot of the decisions that I make against the formula.
Yeah.
So whether it's the top line enablers or the bottom line disablers, I check and I relate so many things back to the formula in terms of if I'm questioning the status quo, which is a natural thing for me. So I question the status quo very often.
Yeah.
Too often to some people's liking.
Yeah.
And I'm not expecting that every idea that I put on the table must be implemented, but I want to give people options.
Yeah.
And I want to trigger the behavior to make sure that I'm not the only one challenging the status quo.
Yeah. And I think part of challenging the status quo, which I certainly struggle with, and I think a lot of us do, is the action part. Once you've made a decision, once you've tried it, actually do it. I also listened to a talk, I think it was by a minister or something. I was just looking through YouTube videos about challenging the status quo or whatever. And he had these 5 points, and it was define, decide, or decide, define, design. I don't know, it was 5 points with a D, and the last one was do. Actually do it and make the change and do the thing that you've decided to do, and then go from there,
Yes. So a quote that I really love is a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that says, "An ounce of action is worth a ton of knowledge."
Yeah.
So you're right. Often that's where we fail.
Yeah.
In terms of, we know that, or we think that this is a better way of doing it, but changing the behavior, somebody must take the action and do it.
We won't actually know until we've tried.
Correct.
So we can talk about it until we're blue in the face, but until we actually put it into action, we don't know.
And we see that in human behavior.
Yeah.
I want to, all of those future.
I want to do the 100 squats a day challenge.
Yeah. Or, I want to. So logically, it makes sense. We want to make a change. We want to do something, but getting to the action step.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned earlier the comfort zone.
Yeah.
So often it is just more natural to us to sit and complain in the uncomfortable chair that we are in, or in the situation that we're in, and actually stepping out of that comfort zone and taking action. So please keep challenging the status quo, people.
Yeah. Speak to Herman if you need some tips. He's been doing it for a long time.
I think it's one of those things where I do believe that we're getting better at.
Yeah.
But there's not enough of it yet.
And I recommend Rich Mulholland's book, Legicide, for people that kind of want to get some of these practical ideas of where you can do it and how to do it. Because, I need to read it again. But it's sitting on my desk there.
It is a nice little book.
Yeah, it's an easy read, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite enjoyable, even for the people who are not traditional readers.
I have a few copies here, so
Cool.
Please come and check out from the library. Get a copy, read it.
Cool. But yeah, guys, challenge the status quo.
Thanks.
Thank you.